Being True to Oneself by Carlo F. Romulo. I believe above all that a man shall be true to himself. I believe a man shall be prepared at all times to sacrifice everything for his convictions. Twice during my life, I had been called upon to make this kind of sacrifice. After Pearl Harbor, the Philippines was invaded by Japan. I had never been a soldier. I was a journalist, but something impelled me to enlist. I was detached to General MacArthur's staff and went with him first to Bataan and later to Corregidor. In Corregidor, I was placed in charge of broadcasts called the Voice of Freedom. The Japanese reacted violently to the broadcasts. I learned that the fries had been put on my head, and worse, they had gone after my wife and 4 sons who had been left behind in the occupied territory. I suffered indescribable torment, worrying about my loved ones. I wanted to go back to Manila at whatever cost, but I was ordered to proceed to Australia on the eve of Fall of Bataan. From Australia, I was sent to the United States, where I continued to make the voice of freedom heard, regardless of the consequences to my family. I did not see them again until after the liberation of my country by the American forces, under General MacArthur, aided by the Filipino guerrillas who had carried on a vigorous resistance during the more than 3 years of enemy occupation. The second time I was called upon to make a considerable sacrifice for my convictions was during the 1953 national elections in the Philippines. I had never been a politician, but having become convinced that I should do everything I could to help effect a change of government in my country, I resigned as ambassador to the United States and permanent representative to the United Nations in order to enter the field against the incumbent president. I rebounded a third party, the Democratic Party, and accepted the nomination for president. I started a vigorous campaign to awaken the Filipino people the need for a change in administration. Midway in the campaign, it became apparent that the two opposition parties might lose the election if they remained divided, but had an excellent chance to win if they would present a united front. I made a painful decision to withdraw my candidacy. After withdrawing my own candidacy, I was campaign manager of Ramon Magsaysay and campaigned up and down the land for him. I could not have worked harder if I had been the candidate myself. Magsaysay won by a landslide. The temptation was strong for all those who had worked for him to share in the rewards of victory. I was convinced, however, that the first duty for everyone who had helped to bring out the change of the government was to give the new president a completely free hand in making appointments to key positions in his administration. Immediately after the elections, I left for the United States. As I look back, I see this pattern of action and renunciation repeatedly over and over again in my life, in things great and small, in war and in peace. Some may call this credo of self-sacrifice. I prefer to describe it as being true to oneself, no matter what the cost.